Hey everyone, I'm Natalie Ivy, and I am so excited to share with all of you that my new book is less than a week away from being available on Amazon. In today's show, I'm going to give you some insight into key sections of the book, some cool supplemental resources that I've created with this new edition, and talk about my new 2-day investigations training workshop. This is one you definitely don't want to miss.
Welcome to the HR Investigations Podcast, exploring the issues, challenges, strategies, and solutions. Sponsored by RPCHR and hosted by Natalie Ivy, an HR consultant, licensed PI, and author of the best-selling book, How to Conduct Internal Investigations, a practical guide for human resource professionals. And now, here's Natalie.
Hey everyone, and welcome to today's show. As many of you know who are regular listeners of the HR Investigations podcast, I'm an author on the subject of employee relations and conducting workplace investigations. Well, I have really exciting news to share with all of you. My new book, How to Conduct Internal Investigations, a practical guide for human resource professionals, will be available on Amazon beginning on May 9th, 2025. Now, this past weekend, I threw a really big bash in Daytona Beach. As you know, that is where my office is and my home. And I was spending really great quality time with family, friends, clients, vendors at the Shores Resort and Spa. We had a really great time, and I was really lucky that my father was able to attend and join in the celebration. I'm so grateful. My dad is 81 going on 45 and is in really great health and quite capable of traveling. So really awesome to have him there. Now, this book has really taken me quite some time to write. I've been pondering it for a number of years, but dedicated writing has been 18 months, roughly to 2 years. Well, if you have never ventured down this road of writing a book, especially working in HR, it's not an easy thing to do. And the reason is that the constant interruptions are going to pull you away. So this took me quite a while to really carve out the time, but strategy that I employed was buying a small writing desk and putting it right in my bedroom. Now, I know for many people, the idea of putting your workspace in your bedroom isn't very desirable, but for me, it really was the quietest place in the house. And I would often get up about 4 a.m, put the coffee on, have several hours of uninterrupted time to work on the book. And with the help of my publisher, Jones Media Publishing, I finally got it across the finish line. Now, I'd also like to acknowledge some professionals who have already endorsed my book, and several of them are HR executives, a couple of them are attorneys, and I'd like to give a special shout out to Laura Jackson. She is the Vice President of Human Resources for NASCAR, and she did a nice endorsement, as well as David Rassin, who's General Counsel and Chief Compliance Officer with SA Exploration, and Captain Mike Panabianco. He's a former union executive with the Southwest Airlines Pilots Association and one of the coolest cats I know. Thank you all for sharing endorsements of my new book and also the others that have endorsed my book as well. Now, I'm going to reveal some information about the new book. Now, in my second edition, there are some things that are a bit different than the first, but then there are some things that are the same. What is the same with the first edition is that the book is organized into 4 parts. I got some feedback that people really, really liked it that way, and so I continued on with the second edition. So part 1 is what causes investigations and strategies to prevent them. Part 2 is labor and employment law basics. Part 3, super important part, the investigative process from complaint intake to conducting interviews. And then part 4, which is documenting findings and then concluding investigations and also what to do after investigations conclude. Now, on today's podcast, what I'd like to do is read to you just a couple of pages from the book in the preface, and this will give you an idea of some of the things that are included. So here we go. In 2013, I published the first edition of this book, and at that time, the work environment in the U.S. was certainly already becoming increasingly complex for HR professionals. Leaders and HR professionals were being faced with numerous challenges with a multicultural, multi-generational workforce, handling employee work-life balance issues, resolving employee conflicts, keeping pace with rapid organizational change, dealing with the changing dynamics of technology and social media, and managing the complexities of labor and employment laws. Here we are in 2025 with the release of this second edition, and wow, a lot has changed. We've been through a global pandemic, faced geopolitical threats, and navigated dramatic shifts in work environments, from remote and hybrid setups to a return to more in-office routines. We've also seen significant Supreme Court rulings like the Bostock versus Clayton County, Georgia case, and new legislation including the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act and the PUMP Act in 2023. On top of that, the rapid rise of technological advancements, especially in AI, has been game-changing. Unfortunately, one thing that hasn't changed since 2013 in the publishing of my first edition is that HR professionals are still juggling the demands of handling employee complaints and allegations of harassment and discrimination while managing their regular daily workload. It still is a very delicate balancing act that may compromise either or both, and there's still the external pressure that I discussed in the first edition. Failure to properly plan and execute an internal investigation may create the impression in court or before a federal or state agency that the employer didn't exercise reasonable care in meeting its investigatory obligation. What is still an effective measure to prevent or at least mitigate liability is the internal investigation. Investigative challenges aren't limited to private employers. In many public sector organizations, designated security teams, safety and compliance officers, or special investigative units are often responsible for conducting internal investigations. Investigators in these units often have law enforcement or military backgrounds, giving them a strong foundation in investigative techniques and processes. However, they may lack a deep understanding of anti-harassment, discrimination, and other employment-related regulations. Therefore, it's necessary for these investigators to partner with HR in a relationship that can sometimes be less than synergistic. Conflict between departments is common, as often roles, responsibility, and lines of authority are not clearly defined, and each department may make the assumption we're in charge of the investigation. Also, different investigative styles and techniques and organizational politics can easily undermine the investigative process. Investigations conducted in partnership will work only if managed by professionals who recognize the value of collaboration, and by those who recognize the need to clarify roles, responsibilities, and authority to minimize interference and challenges during investigations. In this book, we'll walk through the investigative process from the initial complaint all the way to the how-to and best practices of writing a final investigation report. But before we dive into that, we'll explore how investigations begin in the first place. Along the way, we'll identify strategies to minimize employee complaints, reduce the need for internal investigations, and ultimately lower risks to the organization. Always remember, the best investigation is the one you don't need to conduct. This book also includes supplemental resources to assist you, especially with interview preparation and documentation, and with the preparation of a final investigation report. Now, what I did differently with this second edition is that I created a website that ties directly to the book, and that's where you're going to be able to download supplemental resources and a bit of a toolkit. What you're going to get, a quiz for each of the 4 parts in the book. In the first one, I had those embedded into the book. Now you have a chance to download those. That's kind of cool because you'll be able to work with some of your colleagues and quiz yourself. You also have the 12-step preparation process for planning an investigation. You have interview templates for complainant, witness, subject. Also, you have some documentation samples. What does a document of conversation look like, or a formal statement? And also just a lot of other samples of how to do things with all things sort of investigations, and a sample chain of custody log. So there's a lot there, and I'm really pleased that the publishing company gave me some recommendations on how to do that a little bit better than the first edition. So I think you'll find a lot of value in that. Now, another thing I want to talk about on today's show that I'm really excited about is in line with the new book, I also am launching a new 2-day investigations training workshop. What do you think it's titled? How to Conduct Internal Investigations, a practical workshop for HR professionals. And this is going to have a lot of the content from my new book. It will be 2 consecutive days and very much a hands-on workshop. And what it will do is help you to improve your skills in managing and mediating employee relations issues, conducting investigative interviews, improving your note-taking and documentation, how to prepare investigation reports, and also how do we work with leadership and kind of navigate some politics and what to do to mitigate risk post-investigation. Now, my new 12 Contact Hour workshop will be available for both HRCI and SHRM credit, And it is going to be scheduled on, get your pen handy, July 23rd and July 24th from 8:30 to 4:30. And that will be in Daytona Beach. The venue is going to be the Shores Resort and Spa. And this is the lovely beachfront boutique hotel where I just had my book release cocktail reception. I can attest to the fact they have an amazing bar, amazing restaurants. And of course, a favorite of mine is their spa for an afternoon of pampering, which certainly we all need working in HR and employee relations, don't we? Yeah, love that hot stone therapeutic massage. So you'll be able to register for How to Conduct Internal Investigations, a practical workshop for HR, beginning on May 15th. But please note that if you've attended one of my previous classes that I teach continuing education, please note that this is a completely different class, completely different. The others that I've done in the past have been marketed through a third party. This is something that is new and only available to register through my website at rpchr.com and through my company, RPC Human Resources. All right. So in the meantime, if you have any questions about the new program, certainly you can reach out to me. Just email me, Natalie at rpchr.com, and probably Madison, my assistant, will manage the response for you. I get a lot of mail. But also, if you register early, you'll receive a free canvas beach tote bag, and early Premier Access registration is only $18.95. And June 15th, it does go up to $19.95. So there's a lot going on, and I want you to just stay tuned to the podcast for more information, and more information will be forthcoming at the rpchr.com site. And that will probably be up maybe even a little earlier than the 15th, but we're shooting for by the 15th. We'll have all of the details ironed out for the new workshop. All right, that is it for today's podcast. Until next time, see ya.
Thanks for joining us today on the HR Investigations Podcast. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share the show with any colleagues who will benefit from our strategies and solutions. For free bonus resources, simply visit hr-investigations.com. And remember, if you'd like some help with improving your investigative skills, or if your organization is in need of an external investigator to help with a case, please get in touch with us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.